Welcome back. So now we're going to be looking at playing with the image of our silhouette and playing with some digital multiple exposure and seeing what we can create. Now I'm doing this in real time with you guys. I haven't tested this. I haven't had a play. I haven't done anything at all. For anyone who's seen my other video, you've seen me prepare my silhouette, but apart from that, haven't done anything at all. So we're going to be going through this together and seeing what we can come up with, what we can create. So first thing I'm going to do for this is I actually want to make my silhouette black and white. Now it's borderline a black and white image anyway, because quite honestly, the color, you can't see anything. But for what I like with this kind of blending tool, I quite like the idea of using black and white. So I'm going to do it a really basic way for this purpose. I'm going to hit Control U, come up with my hue saturation, and I'm just going to take my saturation all the way down. And I'm not going to do anything more than that, because I don't really need to control my tones or anything like that. We've got a quite dark image, dark subject on a very light background. So the next thing we're going to do for this is we're going to start adding in some other images. Now I've gone on to a fantastic website called Unsplash, and Unsplash is a website where you can get a load of free photos, free things just to use for playing around. Now, I obviously hope you guys are going to use your own images. It would be great to see your own collaboration from images that you've taken. But for the purpose of what I'm doing, I've grabbed a few images here. I've got some forest images, some textures, one image was people, some flowers. I'm going to grab this forest image here to start with. And I'm going to pull that image over and just lay that on top. So I've got a separate layer from this on here. Now, the first thing when I'm playing with these, what I want to do is I'm going to play with my blend settings on my layers. Now, the best thing, if you're not familiar with these, is to just click on the first one and use your arrow key on your keyboard and just click through and start seeing what happens, seeing what's going to be created. Now, what we're looking for is we're looking for the image to appear in our silhouette, but not on our background. Traditionally, to do that, we're going to be using the lighten, the screen mode, the color dodge, anything within this section here, depending on what we're looking to create. Now I'm probably going to go with, let's have a look. I'm probably going to go with the lighten kind of mode. I kind of like it from there. And as you can see, we have replaced our silhouette. We have almost a multiple exposure. Now, bringing that out, I can play around and I can put the image wherever I want. I can also take the opacity down so that we're going to blend these together in that kind of way. So I'm going to zoom out and I want my forest going sideways because I think that will look quite cool. We're going to have the forest coming in just like that, coming in that way. And we've got a little bit of a blend. And if I take my opacity down, I could start playing with this. However, what I think I'm going to do is actually lighten this area so it almost blends out into nothing. So I'm going to, on my forest layer, so I've turned the background layer off, what I want to do is create this section to be pure white. Now to do that, all I'm going to do is hit Control L for my levels, hit my little highlight swatch over here and tap it. And wherever I tap it, if I tap on the green, that will become white. So I'm just going to tap it as much as I can to get as much of this white and leave the rest of the forest one. As soon as I turn my background layer back on, you can see that this whole area has now vanished. It has now disappeared, and that's because we've got white on white. Essentially, it's going to blend over my silhouette, and we can choose exactly where we want that to create quite an artistic shape. I quite like that. That's quite cool. It's just kind of overlapped really nicely, and then we can kind of blend in if you want to bring back some of that shape. But I think that looks quite fancy. So let it save that. So that's the first thing. That's the first one, playing with overlapping your layers and playing with different exposures and things like that. All different images are going to have a different effect. So if you overlap a lighter image or a darker image, it's going to have a different type of effect. So play around with that. It is going to be different, but I think it's a very fun way to kind of create a different sort of image. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to save a copy of that first. Before I crash everything. My computer's been doing far too much today. Cancel that. What I'll do is we'll bring this out and I'm going to duplicate it and I'll do it that way. There we go. So I've got 2. So let's take that out a second. Let's go back to our silhouettes in here. So let's have a look at one of our other ones. I like this one with the stripes. I think that's quite cool. So let's have a bit of a play with our settings and see what we can create with that. That's quite cool. I like picking the size, having the people walking across. I think that looks quite cool. And I'm going to change my opacity down on that one to create a different and interesting kind of shape. I like that you can't quite tell what's going on, and actually that the hair flick kind of comes out with it. It's again something a bit different. If I then, I'm going to pull the flowers in just for the fun of it. Let's put the flowers across and try a different blend technique on top. And you can see that the darken and the multiply sort of sections are going to do more towards the whites than they're going to affect the blacks. So they're all going to start blending together. Really weird and really cool. The more layers you add on, the more you've got to kind of play with. Let's see. Bringing that in there. And you can build up and create as many different things as you want to. We can turn our opacity down on certain ones. And you can add in as many different elements as you want to create whatever kind of shape, whatever kind of pattern you want to create with it. So that's basically how we're going to do our overlays. I'm just going to do one more with my flowers because this one's got quite a light background. So I'm not sure how I'm going to want to play with this one yet. So putting it on lighten and screen can do things like this, where we're going to create essentially what is a very pretty collaboration between the two. But what I'm now going to do is I want to do a bit of a mix between the both. So I'm going to put it on darken. I'm going to put it on multiply or darken, and I want to eliminate this background. Now I can click the remove background button that pops up now, but quite honestly I could also very simply just do my highlight swatch again, get that background to be as white as possible, and then I'm going to duplicate my flower layer and put the other version on screen. Let's have a look, see what we can create from there. Or we can kind of play around with that. That's quite cool. And we can create different versions in different parts of the silhouette. Again, I'm going to crash my computer today. I'm having one of those days. Now I think I'm going to make that black and white. Pull that out and have the flowers coming out as well. We can create a cool sort of set coming from there. Do it again, another layer. Put that on screen. Coming from there, and I'm going to invert it. And by inverting it, I've made the background black instead of being white. So now I've got an opposite effect to kind of play with on top of my flowers there, which I can build up and create as many of these as I want to. So if I want to duplicate this one again, I can rotate that round, add some flowers coming out the back. Now I'm not sure I like this bit at the front, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use my I can use, to be honest, I'm going to use the mask tool. I was going to use the mask tool, but we could also just use the eraser tool for what we're doing here. So I've just grabbed the eraser tool and I'm on that layer, and I'm just going to rub that out because anything the other side of the silhouette we're not going to see too much anyway. And I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to bring it round this side, and I want some flowers coming out down the front, down here. And I'm going to grab my eraser tool and I'm going to draw that out just in there, just to create a bit more of a fancy sort of shape coming in. Now overall, I'm quite enjoying that. I think that looks quite cool. I can now click on my background layer, click Control L, and decide how, if I want to make that a pure silhouette, make it dark, or if I want to bring my lightness up and play around with the contrast a little bit more. I can choose how I want it. I think I want quite dark for this one. And I think that's quite a fancy kind of effect. I like it. I like it's creating flowers. I haven't done this sort of editing in quite a few years, so it's quite fun to start playing around with what is essentially digital art using photography rather than photography. It's different, very different sort of editing. Now, the last thing I'm going to do here, I think I want to add some colour, make it a bit fancier, add some more colour. So I'm going to click down here and I'm going to add a gradient. Now, already, that's quite cool. I like it, but I want colour. I want bright colour. So I'm going to go to my purples. I'm going to go with my pinks and my blues. I think I want a slightly darker tone, maybe that sort of one. And choose my angle. I think I'm going to go, reverse it round, purple at the top, blue at the bottom, maybe. Click OK there. And yet again, I'm going to play with my blend modes. We're going to click on the top, and it will very much likely be the light on the screen, but let's click through them. Let's have a look. We're getting some funky album cover kind of looks. And we knew these were the ones that we were going to like. Yeah, I kind of like those ones. We'll go to, that's quite nice. I'm liking soft light. I can tone that down a little bit. Just adds a hint of colour into the flowers. I think it's actually just brought the image to life a little bit. Now, if I want to change any of those colours, I can double click on my gradient again and play around with exactly how we like it. I quite like the purple down the bottom now. I think that looks quite cool. And the only thing I've noticed, I can see a line coming down here. I don't know if you guys can see that. I think it's that layer there. So I'm just going to erase that line. I figured it out on the layer. But I think that's quite funky as well. And we've created a totally different sort of look just by using a silhouette. For anyone who's attended my workshops, you'll see we've done silhouettes quite often with dance. So maybe that would be a fun one to revisit, see what you can overlap, see what you can do. The first 10 or 20 of these that you do are probably going to be an absolute mess. It's worth playing with, seeing what works, what doesn't. When you eventually understand all of these different blend settings, it suddenly becomes a lot clearer and a lot easier. But the best thing is just to keep clicking through. So, see what you like, see what it does. Go, oh, that's interesting. I could decide now, for example, that I'm not a fan of our inverted one and I want to take that out and just have the silhouette. I could also want to tone that down. So I've just got much more subtle kind of flowers coming in. I can make lots of decisions. I might want to completely reposition where the flowers are coming through and create a little bit more of an outfit almost with the flowers. We can play around with whatever we want to play around with. You are the artist, you are the creative. So I want to see what you guys come up with. I'd love to see some of the things that you create and some of the things that happen. And I will be posting this up on my relevant social medias for everyone to see. And I can't wait to see what you guys come up with too. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.